With their big rematch coming up this Saturday, let's take a stroll back in memory and look at the first fight between Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards, as it's a fight that happened back in 2015 and a lot of fans today never even watched that fight. A lot of people don't even know that they fought each other already. And Kamaru Usman ultimately won a decision, winning every single round, but it was not a dominant performance per se compared to what you're used to seeing from Usman. Back in that day, both Leon and Usman were young in their careers. That was Usman's 8th professional fight, and that was Leon's 13th. Usman didn't have the kind of striking that he shows today. It wasn't as developed, so the majority of what he did was taking people down, control them, ground and pound. If they get up, he keeps them in the clinch, lands some shots there, and drags them back down. Let's just say a lot of fans didn't like Usman's style back then. They thought he was pretty boring, until he switched up with Trevor Whitman and became this knockout artist, an exciting fighter now. Leon Edwards back in the day did not really show to have great grappling. The majority of what he did was kickbox people from a distance, great precision with his shots and all of that, but most of the time when a wrestler fights a striker, the wrestler is able to take them out of their comfort zone and win those fights. And that's actually kind of what you saw here, because Leon looked a bit flustered after the first shot from Usman. Maybe because he felt the strength that Usman has. He definitely showed to be stronger. Maybe it was because it was the first big wrestler he fought in his entire career. Leon became so much sloppier in the presence of a strong wrestler, and that even came in the stand-up where Usman was able to catch him with some shots. This is what you'll see happen sometimes. A wrestler's takedown threat is so focused on by the striker, they do not want to get taken down. They're intimidated by that factor. They're giving it so much respect that they leave themselves open on the feet. Instead of focusing on everything, they're mostly focused on defending takedowns or countering takedowns. But when takedowns are not coming, they miss steps when it comes to their own striking. Leon Edwards was overextending and rushing with so many of his shots when he should be managing distance a lot better. He was looking for the big knockout. He was lunging in there with punches and actually looking even sloppier than Usman on the feet because of the threat of the takedown. You'll see him oftentimes like in the southpaw stance, which he took for the majority of this fight. Nowadays, he will switch back and forth, which is actually a completely different wrinkle to his game that Usman has to deal with now. He would be throwing that 1-2 combo, and while throwing the left hand, he puts so much power into it without actually picking out the opening first, without preparing for it correctly. He was chasing a knockout, and then look at his feet, stumbling forward and stuff, open to counter shots. If he does that same thing against Usman in the rematch, he's going to get hit. Very similar to the way that Colby Covington got dropped by Usman. He did the same thing, lunging there with punches, trying to get the knockout, and Usman caught him with a check hook. The lack of distance management was the biggest thing that went against Leon Edwards. Not only for his own offense, but even defensively, even countering. He rarely ever took a back step away from Usman, whether Usman would throw a punch or he'll shoot in for a takedown. Leon was always standing in front of him, and you even saw some accidental headbutts that caused some big collisions, man. Those are some bad headbutts, and all Leon was looking to do was intercept. He was just looking to counter the aggression without moving his feet, and sometimes he would land some shots. I mean, a good straight left and even some uppercuts and stuff, but the thing is, he was moving before the Usman fight. Against guys who weren't wrestlers, he was moving around and stuff, but not against the wrestler, which was interesting to see. You would think he would do the opposite. You would think he would actually take the more cautious approach when it came to his footwork, but it looked like he just wanted the knockout. So Leon only looking to intercept instead of cutting angles for shots so he has a natural escape, or moving away from Usman to make Usman overextend. And I really have to point that out because Usman was swinging punches with all of his power, and a couple times throughout that 3-round fight where Leon actually did move away, you saw the overextension that Leon was missing on. So open to counter shots. And these bright moments only happen a couple times. Leon fading away or pulling back on Usman's big overextended punches left Usman very vulnerable to get countered with anything, to be honest. And there was even one moment where Leon was able to create an angle on the outside foot from Usman's aggression, pivoting around and opening up Usman. But it was very rare in the fight, and Leon still has an issue with this sometimes. For an example, when he got hurt by Nate Diaz, he planted in front of Nate's attack instead of using his footwork advantage to get away from the potential shot, get that overextension out there, and then counter it. He's faster than most of these guys when it comes to his footwork, but he makes questionable decisions inside of exchanges that leaves you really wondering. And if it happens one time against this version of Usman, the fight could be over. Usman has that kind of power now. He hit hard back then, but his punching form was so sloppy, he wouldn't be able to generate the full extent of his power into his punches. Now he can. These collisions that were happening between him and Usman were so bad for him. I mean, Leon being so stationary for the majority of the fight, it made it easier for him to get hit. For an example here, when he got clinched up because he didn't move anywhere, Usman kind of just blitzed him down and Leo's right there to get tied up. Off the disengagement, that's when Usman was able to land his punches. So it's not just like a single punch from a distance from Usman's going to catch him. Even punches out of clinches and stuff that he's able to get because Leon didn't move. And you definitely saw the power difference. When Leon got hit, he had to take some steps back. When Leon hit Usman, Usman would tank it and march forward. And we're probably going to see a similar thing in the rematch as well. Power doesn't usually change. Leon was always a great striker. The right shots can cause different kind of impact, but power for power, Usman's definitely going to have the advantage because his striking has gotten better, his quote-unquote power has gotten better as well, for the fact that he has corrected the form of his punches. So Leon being stationary leaves him open to punches and takedowns. He's right there for all of it. That is why Usman has such an easy time shooting and creating contact with Leon and then dragging it to the cage, eventually taking it down from there. That was how the majority of his takedowns actually worked. Usman is such a strong wrestler, man. His ability to work you in the clinch and then transition into takedowns is something a lot of guys are not able to deal with. And perhaps even in the rematch, I don't see Leon dealing with that well. Maybe he'll take more control of the clinch because he did leave a lot of it to Usman in the first fight. Usman had freedom to throw knees and elbows and everything because the threat of the takedown kept Leon on edge about it the whole time, which was great work by Usman. The majority of the times he shot and the faking of takedowns got that respect out of Leon. I mean, one big moment where Usman presented multiple big threatening moves in one sequence by taking a big outside foot step, which is going to line up a big high kick that was meant to knock Leon out. And then after Leon blocked it, Usman feinted with a takedown. This is overloading the sense of safety from Leon and further conditions him to take the safe approach. I mean, look at Leon's posture. Look where his hands are. Today's Usman would have capitalized on this moment and landed some big punch. The further the fight went, the more you saw Leon actually being a lot more complacent. But we do have to give Leon some credit with his ability to get up from the bottom. Besides, at the end of the third round, after getting taken down, Leon was getting up pretty quickly. And the way he was doing that was he was actually giving his back up to Usman. This is something that Usman has never addressed. He grapples like a pure wrestler. No Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at all. Leon was giving up his back and Usman never took the initiative of getting the hooks in and tried to chase a choke or something, threaten that kind of escape. With no sense of danger, Leon was able to always do this, and Usman was never able to capitalize except one time. And it shows Kamaru Usman's ability to adjust, and it might be better than even Leon's. He gift wrapped him, reaching around his body. It's almost like a reverse Dagestani handcuff. He's reaching around with the other hand, grabbing an arm and pulling it across Leon's body. This is going to render that arm useless, and it opens that side up for ground and pound shots. Because look which hand of Usman's is free, and look which side is open now. This is how Usman was able to continuously hammer away, and the fact that he's reaching around Leon's back, he's naturally putting pressure on top, which is making it hard for Leon to even stand up from this position. Extremely good adjustment from Kamaru Usman, whereas for the majority of the fight, he had a hard time keeping Leon down. So maybe he can go to this in the rematch, but here's the thing about Leon Edwards. He has made a lot of adjustments in his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and in this fight, he actually went up for a triangle but got it the wrong way. So it perhaps can still show that Usman could be somewhat vulnerable to submissions if Usman wants to take him to the ground. You never really saw any kind of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu evolution to Kamaru Usman. And we know a lot of the guys that train at Sanford MMA and Blackzilians, we'll say Blackzilians because that's where Usman spent the majority of his training over there with Henry Hooft. A lot of those guys did not really show good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There were some guys, of course, like Gilbert Burns, Vicente Luque and stuff, but a lot of fighters over there had a complete lack of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Didn't even acknowledge it, like Anthony Johnson, Kamaru Usman, Rashad Evans, Michael Johnson, Jason Jackson. There's a lot of guys over there that just don't go that route. They just wrestle. And going to Trevor Whitman, you're probably not going to see a lot of over there because the big thing they're working on is his boxing. They don't have a load of world-renowned Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu trainers. And at this stage of his career, you're probably not going to see a lot of those adjustments in his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he can be left open to a lot of submissions from Leon if he takes Leon down now. I mean, back then, Leon had an opportunity to go in for a triangle, but he just got out the wrong way. So the main changes for Leon Edwards in this fight is he's going to have to get off the center line firstly. He's going to have to move away, use his footwork to his advantage, which is the most important thing for him. Even though he has a reach disadvantage, he's much better at range than Usman is. Because he has that kind of footwork, because he has the precision with his counter, try to make Usman stand up look as sloppy as ever by mainly redirecting. And keep the back away from the fence. That's how Usman is going to get the best of his takedowns against someone like Leon. In the center, it's going to be much harder for Usman to finish those takedowns. Going for the submissions, attacking off the back, which is something a lot of guys don't do against Usman. Notice the majority of fighters that Usman takes down, rarely do they ever even attack submissions. Leon and Damian Maia, like only a very few amount of guys did. And knowing that Leon got the better of Nate Diaz when it came to the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu exchanges, Leon's bottom game is looking very promising. But when Leon is looking to stand up, as crazy as it sounds, even giving up the back again is probably something that's still going to work against Usman. He needs to have the wrist control. He cannot allow Usman to take control of the wrist, or he's going to get gift wrapped again, or he's going to get Dagestani handcuffed, he's going to get wrist rode, and that is ultimately the end of the breakdown, guys. I cannot wait for this rematch. The closer the fight gets, the more I actually can see Leon winning this, or at least it being a competitive fight. So leave in the comments below, who do you guys think is going to win the rematch, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which is probably going to be the podcast.